Okay, here's a review for your semester exam. Number 1 through 4, you're going to simplify each expression. So 9r squared minus 5r minus 6r squared. 9r squared minus 6r squared are like terms. 9 minus 6 is 3. R squared stays the same. Minus 5r is not like, so you tack it on at the end. This is the final answer. 2. 3c squared minus 8 plus 6 minus 1c squared. There's a 1 in front of here. You find your like terms. 3c squared minus 1c squared is going to be 2c squared. And then you combine your like terms. Negative 8 plus 6 is a negative 2. Those aren't like, so you're done with your answer. Next, 9a minus 2 parentheses 6a plus 3. When you see parentheses, the first thing you need to do is multiply. Negative 2 times 6a, negative 2 times 3. So you bring down 9a, negative 2 times 6, negative 12a, negative 2 times 3, negative 6. From there, you combine your like terms. 9a minus 12a is negative 3a. Minus 6 is not like, so it gets tacked on at the end. Here you have two sets of parentheses on number 4. 2 times 3, 2 times negative 5. So 2 times 3t is 6t. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. You're done with the multiplying there. Now you still need to multiply negative 3 times 4t and negative 3 times 1. Negative 3 times 4t is negative 12t. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. From here you combine your like terms. 6t minus 12t. It tells you exactly what to do. Is negative 6t. And last you have a negative 10 minus 3, minus 13. Here, you're done. There are no more like terms. All right. 5. You're going to start solving here at the bottom. 4x plus 12 equals 56. So when you start to solve, you can rewrite the problem. 4x plus 12 equals 56. You're going to move your numbers to one side and variables to the other. When I move 12 to the other side, opposite of plus 12, minus 12 minus 12. Plus 12 minus 12 cancels. You bring down your 4x equals 56 minus 12 is 44. Your last step is to undo multiplication, so divide by 4 on both sides. When you divide by 4, 4 divided by 4 is just x, equals 11. Next one. Since you have two parentheses, x minus 5, before you start to move things over, you need to multiply that out. So when you multiply 2 times x and 2 times negative 5, you should get 2x minus 10 equals 20. Now you can solve. Move your numbers to the right and keep your variables on the left. Opposite of minus 10 is plus 10, plus 10. Minus 10 plus 10 cancels. You bring down your 2x equals 30. Your last step is to undo multiplication, so divide by 2 on both sides. When you divide by 2, x equals 15. And you're done. Next, we have variables on both sides. So the first thing you need to do is move your variables to the left, and last we'll move the numbers to the right. So the only way you can move this variable to the left is by using the opposite operation. Opposite of 3x is minus 3x, minus 3x. 3x minus 3x is 0, it cancels. 5x minus 3x is 2x minus 21 equals 35. Just bring down that number. Now you move your numbers to the right. So we're going to move this negative 21 to the right by saying opposite of minus 21, plus 21 on both sides. When you do that, minus 21 cancels, so 2x equals 66. From here, you're going to divide by 2 on both sides. When you divide by 2, x equals 33. Eight and 9, you're going to solve the literal equations. When you're solving the literal equations, you're going to solve for the variable. So if I have the equation A equals PRT, all of this is multiplication, P times R times T. I'm solving for P. The variable you solve for will stay exactly where it is, and you need to undo the operation to get that variable by itself. To undo multiplication, you're going to divide. You're going to divide all of this by RT. Divide all of this by RT. When you divide by RT on both sides, RT will cancel on the right, and you are left with A over R times T equals P. This is solving for the literal equation. You start with 4 variables, you end with 4 variables. All right, next, we are going to have solve for A now. A is going to stay exactly where it is, and we're going to move everything else around it. The first thing you want to move is this plus T. So opposite of plus T would be minus T. Minus T. Plus T minus T will cancel just like minus 21 plus 21 cancels. And you bring down what's left. You have A parentheses M minus R equals S minus T. And the last step is to undo this multiplication to get the A by itself. So you can divide everything by M minus R. Divide everything by M minus R on both sides. So in the end, A equals S minus T over M minus R. Here you solved for A, you isolated the variable. All right, on questions 10 through 13, the directions say to use your calculator to solve. You can use NSolve, or you can just graph each of the equations to find your answer. And that might be easier so you can visually see each of these questions. So if I try number 10 in my calculator and I graph this, in order to graph this equation, you're going to delete the equal sign and choose 6, and then you can type your equation. 5 minus parentheses x plus 3, close your parentheses, equals negative 1 plus 2 parentheses x minus 3. When you do that and press enter, it is a vertical line. X equals is a vertical line. To figure out what the x value is, you can press menu 5-1, and it takes you directly to that point. X is equal to positive 3. So your answer is B. You can do that and go back and check your answers for the following questions up here. And if you chose to, you could graph these just to make sure that you're getting the correct answer. So delete, choose 6. You can type in 4x plus 12 equals 56. Menu 5-1 should take you directly to your answer. X equals 11, and that's exactly the same answer. Okay, next, let's go ahead and go down to number 11. On number 11, you are going to graph and find the solution in your calculator. Again, open up a new document, go to number 2 for add graphs, delete the equal sign, choose 6. Negative 1 over 2 parentheses 4x plus 6, close your parentheses, equals 1 over 3 parentheses 9 minus 3x. Close your parentheses. Press enter. It's a vertical line. Find your answer by pressing menu 5-1. Takes you directly to your point. So x is equal to negative 6. D. Next question says, what value of x makes the equation true? So all of these it's asking, what is the value of x? Again, graph in the calculator and find your solution. Delete, choose 6, negative 3 over 4 parentheses negative x plus 8 equals 1 over 2, parentheses 6x minus 10. If you choose menu 5-1, the value comes up as a decimal. Since our answer is a decimal, it's negative 0.444. So if I look at my answer choices, I can automatically eliminate A, B, C is not negative, and I know that 1/2 is 0.5. So my answer is D. If I wanted to check that fraction, I could go to my calculator page and type in the fraction negative 4 divided by 9 and press Control Enter. And there is my decimal. So the answer is D. Number 13, it says if negative 4 comma y is a solution to the equation x minus 3y equals 5, what is the value of y? So this is an equation. An equation can be graphed in your calculator, and it's asking what's the y value when x is negative 4. So if I take my calculator, go to a graph page, and graph the equation, delete, choose 6, x minus 3y equals 5, press enter, I can look at this line and pull up some points by tracing along the graph. So when I press menu 5-1, it allows me to trace along the graph. If I'm trying to see when x is negative 4, I can move along this line and I can see my values start to change when x is negative 4. Remember, you can go directly to x by just typing in negative 4, enter. When x is negative 4, y is negative 3. So y equals negative 3. You could have found that answer by plugging in a negative 4 for the y. So x minus 3 times a negative 4 equals 5. X plus 12 equals 5. To solve this, you subtract 12 on both sides. When you subtract by 12, I'm sorry, this should be the x value. So I plugged that into the wrong equation. I started to look at that. You'd plug in an x for negative 4 minus 3y equals 5. You add your 4 to both sides. Then you get negative 3y equals 9. Divide by negative 3 and y equals negative 3. That is the exact same answer that we just finished going through. Next page. On number 14, this equation is asking for, it's giving you an equation and it's saying it's passing through this point. What is the value of x this time? If I decide to take my calculator, the only thing on my calculator, I'm not able to pull up the y value. So this problem I need to do by hand. So I'm going to plug in 4 for y into the equation. So if I'm going to plug in a 4 for the y, I'm going to have 3x minus 7, plug in a 4, so parentheses 4 equals 5. Now I need to solve this equation just like I did on my other problems in the front. So 3x minus 28 equals 5. From here, I need to undo the operations. So I'm going to take opposite of negative 28 is plus 28. So once I add 28 on both sides, I should get 3x equals 33. If I have 3x equals 33, opposite of 3 times x is divide by 3. Divide by 3, x equals 11. So if you wanted to check that, you could go to your calculator, go to a graph page, and delete and choose 6. If you graph the equation 3x minus 7y equals 5, enter. Then you chose menu 5-1. You can trace along your graph. If you're checking if x is correct, you can type in the x value, 11, press enter, and takes you directly to your point. 11, 4, x, y. And that's your point. Number 15. You're going to solve each inequality and graph on the number line. So again, you're solving, but you have to remember the rule for inequalities. If you divide by a negative, you flip the symbol. So here, I'm going to have, the original problem is 4x minus 12 greater than or equal to 20. So I'm going to move my numbers to the right and keep my variable where it is. Opposite of minus 12 is plus 12 on both sides. So it cancels. You have 4x greater than or equal to 32. Last step is to undo multiplication, so divide by 4 on both sides. X is greater than or equal to 8. So when you graph your inequality, you're going to draw your number line. At 8, you go back to your inequality. It's a greater than or equal to, so it's a closed circle. And you shade everything to the right because all of the numbers to the right are greater than or equal to 8. And there's how you graph. Next problem. If you wanted to check in the calculator, you can graph these because just like equations, you can graph inequalities. You can delete and choose 6. So if you typed in 4x minus 12 greater than or equal to 20, enter, you can see menu 5-1, the x is greater than or equal to 8, and it's shading everything to the right. So that's why we have a vertical line, it's a solid line, and it's shading everything to the right. All right, number 16. Here you have variables on both sides. So you're going to move your variables to the left and numbers to the right. Opposite of minus 4x plus 4x cancels, plus 4x. Negative 9x plus 4x is negative 5x. Plus 3, you bring down, greater than negative 7. Now you move your numbers to the right. I'm going to move this plus 3 to the right. Opposite of plus 3 minus 3 cancels. You bring down your negative 5x. Greater than negative 10. From here, undo multiplication, divide by negative, divide by negative. Remember the rule. If you divide by a negative, you must flip your inequality symbol. So your inequality symbol will go from greater than to less than, and x is going to be less than positive 2. So when you graph on the number line, since it's a less than symbol, it's an open circle at 2, and it shades everything to the left because everything to the left is less than 2. Again, you can check in your calculator by graphing these inequalities and pressing menu 5-1. Number 17. First thing you need to do is get rid of these parentheses. When you see parentheses, you need to multiply. 3 times p is 3p. 3 times 2 is a negative 6. Drop down that minus 7p less than 6. Now you need to combine your like terms before you start to move anything. When they're on the same side, use the same sign. If I have 3p minus 7p, I'm going to combine that to get negative 4p. Then I bring down my minus 6 less than 6. Now I'm ready to move my numbers to the right. So move this number. Opposite of minus 6 is plus 6 plus 6. Minus 6 plus 6 cancels. Bring down my negative 4p less than 12. 6 plus 6 is 12. Divide by negative 4. Divide by negative 4. Again, when you divide by a negative, it flips your inequality symbol. So from a less than to a greater than symbol. So p is going to be greater than negative 3. When I go to graph on my number line, at negative 3, I should have an open circle, and I'm shading everything to the right because all the values to the right are greater than. Next, on 18 and 19, you are going to write the solution, describe it. So here I have a point at 2 and a point at 8 and everything shaded between. When you have that, all of this represents x. When x is between, you have x in between. Your number is here 2, your number is here 8. So this reads all of these numbers are greater than or equal to 2 and less than or equal to 8. So here, you're going to have your less than or equal to symbol and then your less than symbol. You're restricted to these two symbols when you write this. Next, write a solution to describe the number line shown. So here I have my variables or my numbers going in opposite directions. So here this reads x is less than or equal to 3 because it's pointing to the left and it's closed circle. Or x is greater than 6. It's not equal to, so you don't have your equal to. It's not closed circle, so it's not equal to. All right, on the next page, we're going to talk about functions. When we talk about functions, how do you know when something's a function? You draw a vertical line when you see a graph. If it hits your line once, yes, it's a function. In a table, x does not repeat. In a mapping, x maps to exactly one y value. Same thing, x will not repeat. 21. When you have this graph, you're going to draw a vertical line, hits your graph once, yes, it's a function. 22. Draw a vertical line, hits your graph once, yes, it's a function. 23. Draw a vertical line. If it hits your graph more than once, it's not a function. That means x is repeating all along this line. 24. When you look at this mapping, this is your x and this is your y. Each x should have exactly one y value. Each x should have exactly one y value. Negative 2 is repeated. It's negative 2 comma 13, negative 2 comma 15. So no, this is not a function. 25, you have a table. Look at your x values, 8, 6, 4, 2, 0. It doesn't matter if your x and your y are exactly the same. None of your x's are repeating, so yes, it's a function. 26, if you have individual points, check if your x value is repeating. If you draw a vertical line and it hits your graph twice, no, not a function. 27, look at your x values. If your x values repeats, it's not a function. If your x values do not repeat, it is a function. So x repeats at negative 2, so not a function. Okay, 28. The directions say, is this function continuous or discrete? You need to go back and recall, continuous is connected, discrete are dots. These are individual points, so this is a discrete graph. What is the domain and the range? So when it's discrete, you list your domain and range by numbers. So you can look at this point and say this is negative 4, negative 4. This point is negative 3, negative 1. This point is negative 2, positive 2. This point is negative 1, positive 5. And this point way up here is 0, 8. So now that you have your points, you list your x's in order from least to greatest. Negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0. Range are your y values. You list them from least to greatest, from bottom to top. So you start with negative 4, negative 1, positive 2, positive 5, and positive 8. There's your domain and range. 29. Is this function continuous or discrete? Since this is connected, it is continuous. When it is continuous, you write your answer in an interval. So interval. And you're restricted to your less than or equal to if it's closed, or less than if it's open. Domain is x. X goes in between. Range is y. Y goes in between. So when you look at domain, you look from left to right. Left all the way to the right. So negative 4 to positive 5. Both of these circles are closed, so it's less than or equal to, less than or equal to. Range, you look at the y values. You look from the bottom of your graph to the very top of your graph. So from negative 5 to positive 3, bottom to top, each circle is closed, less than or equal to, less than or equal to. There is your range. And the last page. On the last page, we're going to answer these questions. 30. The graph below shows the height of the ball thrown from the top of the building. Describe the domain and the range of the function. Again, domain is x and range is y. So domain is x, range is y. When I look at this graph, my x values are time in seconds. So domain, x goes in the middle, and you're going to look from the left to the right. and this should be 4.5. So from 0, less than or equal to, because it's closed, that is a closed circle, you just don't see it, all the way to 4.5. So my time in seconds is going from 0 to 4.5. Range, I'm going to look at the y values. So I'm going to look at the height. When I look at the range, y goes in the middle, and I look from the bottom of my graph, my y values begin at 0, all the way to the top of my graph. The top of my graph ends at 95. So from 0 to 95, and again, these are both closed circles, you just don't see it. There is your range. What does the y-intercept represent? The y-intercept represents the initial height of the ball, which is 30 feet. What does the x-intercept represent? The time the ball reached the ground. The ball hit the ground at 4.5 seconds. Number 31. The function c equals 100 plus 0.30 m represents the cost c in dollars of renting a car after driving m miles. In this situation, is it discrete or continuous? Well, discrete are things you can't measure, like people, books, dogs. Continuous is anything you can measure. So this is continuous because you can measure in miles. B, what would the cost be to rent the car and drive 100 miles? 100 miles represents the m, so all you need to do is plug in m for this problem. So c equals 100 plus 0.30 m. If I plug in 100 for m, I'm just multiplying. So cost equals 100 plus 0.30 times 100. So if I put that in my calculator, go to a calculator page and enter that problem. 100 plus 0.30 times 100. $130. So the cost is $130. Letter C. Give a reasonable domain and range for part B. So the domain are your x's and your domain is miles. It's in the equation. The range is the cost. So domain in this problem are the number of miles we're driving. You can drive anywhere from 0 to 100 miles based on part B. The letter M goes in the middle, and it's going to be less than or equal to, less than or equal to. Your range is going to be the cost. So when I look at this, the most you can, if I drive up to 100 miles, the most it would cost is $130. Cost goes in the middle. When I plug in a 0 into this word problem, I still have to pay something. 0 times 0.30 is 0, but I still have 100. So I still have to pay $100 no matter what, less than or equal to, less than or equal to. What does the x and y intercepts represent? Well, if you wanted to identify your x and y intercepts, you can go to your graph page and graph the equation 100 plus 0.30x. It's like y equals, enter, menu 4 to zoom out. When you look at this graph, it starts at a number here, which is 100, that's your y-intercept. It goes on and on. You can't really describe the x-intercept because it's negative, so we're going to cross that question out. The y-intercept is your initial cost to rent the car. So no matter what, you have to pay $100 if you don't drive anything. All right, numbers 32 and 33. Find the domain and range. Here, this graph is continuous. When it is continuous, it is connected. So you must look at the graph from left to right. You must write the interval. So x is in the middle for domain. You look to the left for domain, all the way to the right. So on the left, it's -3. All the way to the right is +1. At -3, it's an open circle, so it's less than. At 1, it's closed, so it's less than or equal to. For range, you look from bottom of your graph to the top of your graph. So from the bottom, it's -4, to the top, it's 0. Y goes in the middle. At -4, it's closed, so it's less than or equal to. At 0, it's closed. You just don't see it. It's less than or equal to. And last, number 33. This data is discrete. Since it's discrete, you will list your numbers. So you will list your points. So starting on the left, this point is 1, 3. This one is 2, 1. This point is 3, -1. This point is 4, 2. We have 5, 0. And we have 6, 6. So you list your x's from least to greatest. Starting from the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For your x's, you list your y's from least to greatest. Starting from the bottom, -1, 0, +1, +2, +3, and +6. There's your answers, and go ahead and study that.